Welcome to this episode of Timely Topics, an educational program of Lotus Network. Lotus Network believes it's never too late to rediscover your potential and make the next chapter of your life the very best. And now, here's your host.
Hi, all. Can you see me and hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. Welcome. I'm Lisa Cook, one of the co-founders of Lotus Network, and I'm so glad you're here today to hear the wise words of our wonderful presenter, Bonnie Davis. Before we start, I wanted to take a moment to share some meaningful insight. Some of you may not have read the latest co-founder letter in the recent edition of our newsletter, The Lotus Seed, that Leslie, my counterpart, and I composed. I believe it carries an important message for our organization and deserves to be read out loud today. As we enter this season of reflection and gratitude, we want to take a moment to share the profound impact that giving back can have, not only on the lives of those we serve, but on each of us as well. At Lotus Network, we're proud to serve over 1,800 women each year through 52 unique programs. That's a milestone for us. These programs offer education, support, and perhaps most importantly, opportunities for connection. Whether you're addressing wellness, healthcare, financial literacy, retirement planning, or helping women discover their potential, our focus is always on fostering meaningful relationships and reducing loneliness. To sustain this critical work, we rely on the generosity of those who believe in our mission. That's why we launched our Circle of Friends campaign, now in its third year. Many of our programs are offered free to participants, and this campaign helps bridge the gap, ensuring that we can continue to provide top-notch educational content, meaningful personal growth opportunities, and a space for women to connect and thrive. Private support through the Circle of Friends is essential to every Lotus Network experience. Donors like you play a pivotal role in ensuring our programs continue to flourish and reach even more women. By becoming a friend of Lotus Network, you'll join a community of difference makers who share our passion for empowering women. We invite you to consider becoming part of our Circle of Friends and contributing to the lasting change we're creating together. For more information about this campaign and the way you can make a difference, please either use the link in the chat or the QR code that's on the screen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued support and for helping us ensure that no woman walks this journey alone. Thank you. Now let's take a look at our upcoming calendar of exciting programs and events. Join us for a monthly conversation salon with Gatif Kaufman on December 14th from 2 to 4 p.m. We will continue the conversation from today's timely topic and take a deeper dive into how to connect with others in more meaningful, strength-based ways. Tara will put the link to register in the chat. Next, join us for part 2 of our imposter syndrome series. Part 1 was so successful, and you don't have to attend part 1 to attend part 2. It's next week on November 19th. It's presented by our Thrive Tribe committee at Cableland. In our upcoming session, Nicole Montez will delve into overcoming the P's of imposter syndrome: perfectionism, procrastination, paralysis, and people-pleasing. Participants will learn to identify how these behaviors fuel feelings of inadequacy. Through guided exercise and discussion, attendees will develop actionable strategies to reframe their mindset and set realistic expectations. By the end, You will feel empowered to challenge these patterns and foster a healthier self-image. Take a peek in the chat to learn more and register. On Thursday, November 21st, join us for a tour of History Colorado. Our Stepping Out program is excited to offer this opportunity to visit this wonderful museum and explore the incredible journey of Colorado's past and present. Founded in 1879, History Colorado is dedicated to sharing our captivating history through engaging experiences for all Coloradans. So please click on the link and register. We'd love to have you join us. Lastly, get ready for an incredible opportunity. Drum roll. We're thrilled to announce our signature experience will be happening on Sunday, April 27th, 2025 at 11 o'clock in the morning, and you won't want to miss it. You may have heard the news, but it's worth repeating. We're thrilled to announce that we have secured the incredible Cheryl Strayed as our keynote speaker for the event. Cheryl is the best-selling author of Wild: From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. Her powerful memoir captivated readers and was even transformed into a hit movie starring Reese Witherspoon, making this a truly unforgettable opportunity. Join us in shaping a morning of connection and inspiration. If you're interested in getting involved or have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to welcome you into this exciting journey. And now on to today's presentation. Bonnie Davis is a speaker, executive coach, culture consultant, writer, and co-owner of Hue Work, specializing in creative, human-centric environments that promote empathy and authenticity for enhanced productivity and innovation. With over 20 years of Fortune 500 experience across various sectors, including nonprofits, she revitalizes culture and develops leaders through workshops, consulting, and coaching. As a member of the Marcus Buckingham Company's coaching faculty and a contributor to Forbes.com, Bonnie actively addresses the challenges of today's environments, making relationships more human amidst complexity and stress. So, without further ado, please welcome Bonnie Davis.
Hello, hello, and thank you. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, joining you from Denver. I see these faces I know, new faces, and you can see that I am a connector provider. Those are my top two strengths roles. And those might sound familiar. I might have some standout twins out there. We're going to hold that thought and talk about that in a little bit. If you had a chance to do your homework, yes, I was mean, I gave you some homework. If you had a chance to do your homework and you have that accessible, your standout report, either on paper or electronic, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. If you did not do your homework, that's okay. I won't send you to the principal's office. You still get an A. We'll have a chance to do that. And we're going to talk about plenty of fun stuff that will not involve your standout directly. So we're going to dive in, and I'm going to be talking to you and with you, but really this is all about you and your strength. So I'm going to open it up with an opening question. I want to see our chat light up. For me, I love to speak to groups, and I love it even more when I'm hearing from all of you. So I want you to think about this question as a starting point. Growing up in your childhood, with your families, at school, in your workplaces, even today in your lives, think about if you've spent more time and focus on your weaknesses or on your strengths. So if you had more focus, more thinking, more attention on your weaknesses, scale of 1 to 5, just pop them in the chat. 1 would be I had more focus on my weaknesses, 5 more focus on my strengths, and it's a scale. It could be somewhere in between. So just no right or wrong answers. Start popping them in the chat. Scale of 1 to 5. Did you have more focus on your strengths or your weaknesses? And again, 1 is that low end, more on the weaknesses, and 5 is more on your strengths. So Wow. Okay. I'm seeing a blend. I'm seeing so many high numbers here. That is really exciting for me because most people tell me that it's the low number. Most people say that they spent a lot more time focusing on their weaknesses than on their strengths. So that is really cool to hear. And we're going to keep going and better understand what that looks like for all of you. Dr. Seuss is somebody that I know has come under some controversy, but I love this quote because to me, it's all about what we're trying to do here today. And ironically, the assessment that I asked you to do is literally called Stand Out. But when you think about it, many of us have tried to fit in our lives. Many of us have tried to wear a certain fashion and have a certain look where we really were trying to fit in more than stand out. And with social media today, both for us as more experienced women of the world, but also certainly for our children and our teenagers, there is a lot of pressure to fit in and not to stand out. Certainly, I know my children wouldn't want to be the ones walking around carrying the books on their heads. So what we have realized is that fitting in is okay, and sometimes socially it works, but really where we get our most joy and uniqueness is where we can stand out. And I'm curious to ask if any of you know the answer to this question. Webster's Dictionary every year comes out with their word of the year. So word of the year every year. Anybody know what the word of the year was in 2023? So the end of 2023, anybody know what the word of the year was? You can come off chat, you can write it. You can come off mute, you can write it in the chat. Anybody know what the word of the year was end of 2023? Okay, I'll tell you. The word of the year was authenticity. Literally, of all the words in the entire dictionary, the word of the year last year was authenticity. And it's a word that's become a bit of an overused buzzword, in my opinion, but really the question is, how can we really be authentic in ways that help us understand the ways that make us different? Well, the punchline of that is strength. So if we really understand our strengths, those are the things that truly make us stand out. The problem is we have these beautiful, wonderful brains, and our brains were designed for one thing and one thing only. Our brains were designed for survival. So if you think about back in the caveman days, if there was a saber-toothed tiger that wanted to chop our heads off, or a beautiful flower, if we put our attention on the tiger, it was survival. Literally, our brains are designed for negativity to find the negative. And I love this image that brings this to life. There's lots of good stuff. All the rocks are there. They're piled up. They're all good. And we see the one tiny little thing that is bad. And that is where our brains go to. So for me, if I deliver a workshop like this and I have 20 people in the room and I get glowing reviews from 19 of those people at the end of the day on the evaluations, and one person didn't like it, guess which of those reviews is going to keep me up at night? Yes, I will think about that one negative review and try to think about what did I do wrong. We have this mindset, more, more, more. I'm not good enough. I need to do more. I need to be better. And so I'm mentioning this not to bring any of us down, but to give us the realization that our brains are literally wired to work against us when it comes to the positive and when it comes to really seeing the best. So what it comes down to is we tend to find what we are looking for. And that means that if we are looking for the negative and we're hearing messages from our families growing up and from our teachers and from our bosses at work, do more, be more, and from all the self-help books out there, if we keep looking for the negative, we're going to find the negative. So much of what we're going to do together today is to really retrain our brains in some way to get more clear about our strengths and about the positive. So what is a strength? Might sound obvious. It's not a word that's a difficult vocabulary word. But in the work that I do, a strength is an activity that makes you feel strong. And that literally means you can fill in the blank on the sentence, I feel strong when. So I want you to think about that for a moment. I feel strong when. What are the things that you do when you are feeling strong? If there are things that you are good at, but you don't like doing, so you don't feel strong, then they're actually not your strength. So I don't know if any of you followed Andre Agassi when he was in his prime days of playing tennis. I read his book years ago, really great memoir. And in his book, he reveals that he actually disliked playing tennis. So in this definition of strength, it actually was, as much as Andre Agassi won many, many tournaments around the globe and was considered to be, in most of our estimations, a superstar tennis player, it actually was not a strength because he didn't love to do it. And then when you think about this idea of a strengths lens, this is really what gets me the most fired up to do this work, because the strengths lens is about seeing ourselves first and other people for what we bring before what we lack. So think about that for a moment. How often in life do we get annoyed at people? It could be in our personal life, in our professional life, even a stranger, even somebody that tries to cut us off on the road. And we immediately get annoyed and frustrated, and we think about the negative. So I want you to think about ways that you can think about yourself and others through this strengths lens. And I love the visual. It literally, we need to zoom in sometimes. So my children are teenagers, and when they fight, I try to say to them, well, what do you appreciate about your sister? What do you appreciate about your brother? And where do you take some responsibility for what happened in the conflict that the two of you are having right now? So having that strengths lens and being able to see each other, ourselves first, but each other for our positive, in my opinion, can really change the world. So I don't want to overstate that, but I really think, especially right now, with so much tension and seeing our divisions and where we're different in so many ways, I really love this idea of forcing ourselves to see ourselves and each other through this strengths lens. For most of this feels really intuitive, but there's actually a lot of data that backs up this idea. So you might be familiar with the Gallup organization. Gallup has been around for 90 years, and they are known for doing deep research in polling and other forms of research, and in more recent years in workplace data. And they ask this question to people. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. And the data is really compelling that people who focus on their strengths at work are 6 times more likely to be more fully engaged and more successful at work. And if their managers are giving them feedback on their strengths, they have an almost 8% increase in productivity. So what does this mean? This means that it feels good when we're in the zone, that we're doing the stuff that we love to do. And I work with companies like Facebook that have created, they're working towards being a strengths-based culture. Based on data like this and based on asking their employees a question like this in their annual survey, they really want to make sure that people are very actively using their strengths all the time. And this comes from the work of Marcus Buckingham. Marcus used to work at the Gallup organization. This quote is really meaningful because it's the words in orange that I want to focus on here, because we want to be in this space of using and leveraging our strengths, and yet most of the time. So most of us still need to do some of the grunt work, some of the things that we don't love doing. Totally understood. I'm not suggesting that every day, all the time, you should be only in your strength zone. What I am suggesting is thinking about like an old-fashioned seesaw or teeter-totter. How much of your time are you spending? Are there ways that you can spend more time in your strength zone and less time doing the stuff that you don't love to do? And for me, I am a geek at heart. I love to learn and grow. So I do want to get stronger at things that I'm not good at, but I don't want to spend most of my day doing that. I want to spend most of my day doing something like this, connecting with people like all of you. There is a sample. Marcus has written, I think, 9 or 10 books. I'm not here to sell his books, but if you do want to go deeper, there you can grab his book, or he has actually a whole bunch of free videos out there if you want to better understand his work on strengths. So in a moment, we are going to turn to your self-assessments and understand through that lens what your strengths are. But I want you to first think about questions like this. These are sample questions. When we are in longer workshops, people sit there and they actually interview each other. You see the microphones there. They interview each other. And it's really powerful. It's actually very vulnerable, but also really powerful to answer these questions for other people. I want you to think about these questions for yourselves. what do you do better than 10,000 people? Okay, 10,000 might be a lot, but what are the things that you know you do better than others, that you get praised for a lot? At the heart of this work for me is really energy. It's so much about the things that fuel us, energize us, get us excited, versus the ones that drain our energy. So this time of the year, we just changed the clocks. And I hate this time of the year. It's always I love daylight, and it's always a transition to get to the darkness. But when I know that I'm in my strength zone, when I'm heads down and I'm working, and all of a sudden I look up and I realize, oh my goodness, it's dark out. When did that happen? Have you ever had that moment? Like, what? I missed the daylight. When did it get dark out? And I got a little annoyed at myself, but I didn't get enough of a walk or enough sunshine that day. But that's an example of being in our strength zone. Before we do these activities, they're the ones we go to that we're excited about. While we're doing them, we're in the zone, we lose track of time. And even afterwards, sometimes we feel that sense of energy, that buzz when you're like, what can I do next? Because you're feeling so good about the things that you just did. So think about these questions for a moment. I want you to grab one of these questions. Maybe it's what other people go to you for. They say to you, oh, I have a big problem. Can you help me think this through? Or I need to prepare for a dinner party. You're so creative. Can you help me come up with a theme for my party? What are the things that people go to you for? What are the things that you get most energized by? I want us to share that with each other, and go ahead and put them in the chat. What are the things? Now, if you took your standout assessment, great, and you can share something from there. But chances are, you know what your strengths are just because they are natural to you, or because you've thought about some in the questions I just had on the other screen. So go for it. I want to hear from all of you in the chat. What are some of the things that you know to be your strengths? Deb got us started connecting others and cultivating connections. Absolutely. Since I know you personally, I can vouch for that one. Vicky says nurturing relationships. That's such an important strength. Elisa, great. Speaking. And you know what? A lot of people go, speaking, I'd rather have dental work. So this is an example where one person's strength can be something that really feels almost scary to somebody else. Terry says connecting the dots of how we were all related. That is a cool one. I wonder if you are an actual connector in Standout. Marissa says community outreach and public speaking. One thing I love about watching this come in is that there are many of you that have clarity on your strengths. I ask this question. I do a lot of executive coaching, and in that first session, one of the first questions I ask people is, tell me your strengths. What are you great at? And it's interesting because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people just naturally don't know. And when I say what's hard for you and what do you need to work on, I get immediately people know what they need to work on. But when it comes to people's strengths, often either we don't know, or ironically, if we're great at something, we take it for granted. Like, wait, Annie says she's great at building relationships. She might think, wait, everybody's not great at building relationships? Absolutely not. A lot of people definitely struggle with that. So I'm seeing lots of good things, and people that I know. Lisa saying, Perlmutter saying, connecting people to each other and building something bigger. I've witnessed you do that. I can vouch, full transparency. My mother is here. She says she's empathetic. She is very empathetic. Thank you for being here. So, and this is really fun for me to understand what you see in yourselves and how you see your own strengths. Feel free to continue to light up our chat with your strengths. Our chat is always open. We're going to switch gears to the standout assessment. So if you did your standout assessment, great, awesome. If you didn't, that's okay too. I promise this piece will still be relevant for you. And if you didn't do it, it's not too late. So the standout assessment is something that used to cost money. A lot of these assessments, you buy the book and there's a code in the book, and then you take the assessment. Marcus Buckingham at the start of COVID thought, you know what, the world is a tough place. And if I can make the world a little bit better by connecting people to their strengths, that's my little part in helping with what's going on right now. So he made Standout free, and it still is free. And from what I understand, that's going to stick. It's known as a situational judgment test, which is a fancy way of saying it asked you, how would you respond in a variety of situations? You may have noticed there was a timer, and that was there on purpose. That was there because we don't want you to overthink. I personally am an overthinker. I think a lot of us, we wanted to say to ourselves, well, it depends on the scenario. So we didn't want you to overthink. You also may have noticed that we asked things in repeated ways, and the goal of that was to the validity of your answers. So if you answered a question and your instinct was like, oh, not quite the answer, I don't know if that was right, and there's of course no right or wrong answers, but if you had that sense of you were second guessing after you clicked, then you can, that's not going to change the output of how your top two roles came out. So we ask it repeatedly in different ways so that we're validating repeatedly. I think it's like 8 or 9 different ways that we are validating your responses. What's really important here, I'm sure many of you have taken DISC and Enneagram and Myers-Briggs. There's so many assessments out there. What's really important is this is about your impact and not your input. Impact, not input. And so that basically means it's how other people see you, not necessarily how you see yourself. So I have people that say to me, I do this all the time in one-on-one coaching and in team workshops, and people might say, I don't really see myself this way. And I will say, well, do you have somebody in your personal or professional life who you trust, and you can give it to them and say to them, what is this me? What do you think? And very often they come back to me and they go, you know what? My boss, my significant other, my roommate, my colleague at work, they said, yeah, this is you. And here's some examples. So if you were feeling like your top two roles did not initially resonate, that's okay. I will be honest and tell you that when I first took this 9 years ago, my top two roles did not fully resonate. So what you're looking at here is the 9 roles of standout. And if those of you who took it, I would love to share in the chat, what were your top two roles? So just tell us and we can compare notes, and we may have some twins out there, people who have the same roles. So throw them in there. Thanks for getting us started. And so I want to share a few things as you think about this. The first is that there are no bad roles. There's no good roles. There's no bad roles. There is this thing called role envy. So I will do this in workshops, and somebody looks over somebody else's shoulder and they go, oh, you got that role. Oh, that's the good one. Oh, I wish I had that role. We make up in our head that some roles might be better than others. So the roles are all equally as good. And the roles, as you can probably imagine, if you're working on a team, whether it is a team in a traditional professional environment, whether it's a nonprofit board that you're part of, or some volunteer work, the more variety we have in teams, the better those teams work. And I mentioned before that mine did not initially resonate with me. So here was my experience. I am a connector provider. I was making big assumptions about these roles. My connector, I was envisioning a connector as the one who works the cocktail party, the one that walks in the room, walks into the networking event, and like, I'm here, world, I'm ready to schmooze and talk, and super comfortable in that environment. I am an introvert. I don't mind going to those kinds of environments, but I am not the one that works the room immediately. I'm the one that makes a beeline for the people that I know. So that's how I was envisioning connector. On my provider side, I was envisioning somebody who's more like a kind of touchy-feely, honey, sweetie, bubble kind of person. I think I'm a kind enough person, but I don't consider myself to be super gooey, emotional right away. I certainly feel like it takes me a little while to warm up to people. And so I was making those assumptions about my provider. So I thought on it, I slept on it, and I had a moment. I did this initially when I got certified in this tool at the Marcus Buckingham offices in LA. And I flew back to Denver. And I don't even know if this is still there with so many things being electronic, but there used to be, I know many of you are frequent travelers in and out of the Denver airport. We also have people from other places, although I think most of you have visited Denver. So there was your typical display of brochures of things to do in Denver. And I realized as I was coming back from this trip to learn about this tool that I would like make a little hover and hang out and look at the brochures of things to do in Denver, and I would start grabbing brochures. Why did I do that? Because this was earlier years when more people would come to visit us in Denver, particularly when my kids were younger. I really wanted to be the tour guide. I want everybody to have a great time when they're visiting Denver. So the connector in me wanted to connect people to this great information about things to do in Denver. And the provider in me, it was really important that they had the best time in Denver. Like I felt very responsible. If people visit and it rains, it's like all my fault. I felt very responsible for the weather, which obviously I had no control over. So those were some examples of how my connector provider would show up. When I was in high school and in college, my nickname, for those of you who remember the Love Boat, my nickname was Julie the cruise director. I was the one who would get my friends together and read the local magazine in New York City where I lived before I came to Denver 24 years ago and go, oh, there's a exhibit in town, there's a show in town, we should get together, we should go. So my connector provider wanted to get everyone together and wanted everyone to have a great time. When I was working in big companies on big teams, I was the one who would say, oh, it's summer, we should go out to a baseball game, or it's been a while, let's do happy hour, or maybe we should just, I would be the one to pass around the birthday card and the birthday cake. So those were ways that my connector provider showed up for me. If you have not had a chance to go deeper on your standout report then, or if your initial reaction was that it didn't fully resonate, I just invite you, I'm not here to convince you and tell you that it's your accurate roles. I'm going to invite you to go deeper and read through your report. And so I also want to mention that there are some elements of this that you do need to keep going to read, because I think some of the words, as much as I love this report, I think some of the words can be a little bit misleading. So for example, teacher, which as you can see is my number 3, teachers are ones that it sounds like you're standing up and you're teaching a class. It also has the apple, which is obviously an icon, a symbol of being a teacher. Teachers actually are more about asking a lot of questions to bring out the best in others. When I did this work early on, I was being certified, so I had to do a lot of these sessions where I would debrief. I would do coaching sessions, and I would debrief people on their roles. And I actually worked with a school teacher who was very low on teacher on these 9 roles. She kind of freaked out a little bit. Am I in the wrong career? Well, what she realized was she was a very high pioneer. She was very innovative, very creative. And so she would bring her 3rd graders on a journey and say, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And imagine if. And she really got their imagination going as a great way to teach and capture their attention. So there are no roles that are necessarily connected to specific jobs. People make assumptions, oh, providers can't be CEOs or heads of boards. Absolutely not true. There is no data to show that certain jobs go with certain standout roles. For me personally, when I worked for big organizations, if I had a boss who had my back, I would go to the end of the earth for that person who really looked out for me. So certainly providers can be very strong leaders. For me, I do consulting, coaching, and facilitation. I got a little bit nervous when I saw my advisor role was number 9, because I thought, don't consultants advise? Well, here's the thing. I can do all 9 of these things. You can do all 9 of your things. It doesn't mean that you can't show up and do it. It just means it's going to be a little bit more tiring for you, a little bit more exhausting for you. And what I realized is that at the time I had a consulting client that really wanted me to tell her what to do. So that is not my style. My style is more collaborative. I want to coordinate and collaborate and connect and really partner with my clients. I'm happy to give them options and say, what do you think? Let's talk about what will best meet your needs. And this one client, Betsy, really wanted me to tell her what to do. And I had this aha moment that because my advisor is 9, that's really what Betsy was looking for in me, and that was not my style. So I just temporarily shifted my style. I had this aha. I was a little bit more directive in giving Betsy my recommendations. And then when I moved on to other work, I realized at that point I shifted to do a lot more coaching and a lot more facilitation and less consulting projects because of my advisor being 9. So the goal here is not to put you in a box. The goal is to have you realize the ways that you can be your very best at those top 2 roles. Also, if you are around other people who are stronger role than you. So for me, my stimulator is number 6. If I am around somebody who's a stronger stimulator, stimulators are the ones who may crack the jokes more and bring up the energy in the room. Or they may be the ones, because I see a bunch of you are stimulators here in the chat, they may just be the ones who are deeper feeling, more in tune with the emotion in the room. It doesn't mean I can't do that, but somebody else is going to be stronger and doing that more. And I see a comment in there from Charity that as a provider advisor, it comes out as a more collaborative leader style consultant. Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I think, a great way for us to get more clear on what our styles are. This is a fun little exercise that I did with the people that I coach and consult and facilitate with on this team. Of other people that do this work. And so the exercise was find images that represent my top 2 roles. So I did not give this to all of you for homework, but feel free to take it with you if you're more the creative type or the old fashioned, if you still have magazines and you like to pull out pictures of magazines. And so in the middle of there is the heart. I really do listen with heart. I love that picture that as a coach, I really do pride myself on my listening skills, and my standout report absolutely reflects my listening skills. So listen with heart. And then certainly the coffee cup on the right, world's best you. That is why I wake up every morning, to help people be the best version of themselves. And the other images, you can use your imagination and think about ways that these represent me and my top 2 strengths roles. So if you are more visual or feeling the need to be a little bit more creative, go for it. I even had I had a client that did stand out, and she loved it so much, she went and did it with her book club and then had her book club put together an image like this, a 1-pager. And she said these were women that they had been in this book club for like over 10 years. And she said they had new and different conversations to get to know each other in ways that she wouldn't have imagined before. So your assessment has these wonderful sections, and it's probably about 14 or 15 pages, depending on your role. And I will also say, if there are things in there that don't resonate, don't fit, that's okay. Just cross them out. Only you truly know your own strengths. So don't make it feel like it's supposed to force fit you. That's okay. There could be things that don't really fit, but circle the things that really do resonate and think about the ways that you can make some shifts in your life to lean in and use your strengths even more than you are today. The report also has something called watchouts. And so watchouts, as they sound, are things that we need to do a little bit less of. So there is an old cliche, I guess you'd say, or a saying, when your strengths become your weaknesses. When your strengths become your weaknesses. We do not believe, or I don't believe, and those of us that do this work do not believe that your strengths can become your weaknesses. Your strengths are yours to lean into and to own, and they will not become your weaknesses. However, sure, we can overdo them. And the number one way that usually we realize we're overdoing is fatigue. We are exhausted. So sometimes providers feel like we're just carrying more and more for other people, and we can't keep worrying about the whole world. We need to take care of ourselves. Pioneers, when they're overdoing, pioneers are the ones who are more creative, new ideas. So if you're the kind of person that you're always starting new project, and you're not finishing projects, those could be examples of where you are overdoing your strengths. So the goal here is not to judge yourself. We always want to have grace and self-compassion. The goal is to think about strategies to neutralize a negative impact. So it could be the way you communicate with people. It could be just telling the people close to you, hey, I tend to overdo this sometimes. So equalizers, as an example, they really see both sides of things. And sometimes you could say to the people that are close to you, that spend time with you, can you just help me, just give me a little bit of sense of picking one side or the other, because I'm really getting myself exhausted here about seeing both sides of an issue. So be more thoughtful, intentional of how your watch outs might get in your way. And like a lot of behavior change that you've heard on so many of these other Lotus Network speakers, self-awareness is really key to understanding what it is that we need to be doing differently. So I know that we're talking about strengths and our positive stuff, but I'd still love to hear from all of you on the chat. And so same way as you've been doing so far, share with us, what is one of your watch outs? So I'll give an example as you think about your watch out, and it could be something from your report. It's toward the back of your standout report. So maybe something there is resonating. Maybe it's something else that you're thinking about as I've been talking. So go ahead, put them in the chat. An example for me is if somebody said to me, I have a job I want to fill. I'm a manager and I have a role on my team. I need to hire somebody. I might go out of my way. The connector in me really wants to connect them to somebody that might be great for that job. And I might spend like an hour or two on my LinkedIn to figure out, who do I know that can fill that job? This person didn't ask me for that help. They didn't hire me as their recruiter, but I may put too much time and attention. I may overdo my connector by trying to find somebody for the right job. The other piece is the provider in me really wants this person that I know to have a great direct report, and I want the people in my network to have a great boss. So that's an example for me of where I realize, like, I don't need to spend an hour or two connecting with somebody to a new job role if nobody's been asking me to do that. So there's an example. Thanks for the share in there of asking you to help with all sorts of projects, fundraisers, initiatives. You may not have the interest or knowledge of the topic. Yes, yes, and yes. Can I get a thumbs up for more people that feel that way? Yeah, that was a great example for me. I realized years ago that same as Lisa said, get asked to do a lot of that stuff. And in my children's school, I realized I only want to do the stuff that is directly facing with them. That connector provider in me wanted to be there in the classroom on the school trip. I had signed up for doing this project. It was like, it's literally midnight and I was like typing things out. I'm like, no, I'm not seeing the kids. I'm not interacting with the kids. And I realized I had to say no to the things that were not directly interacting with my kids in the classroom. And in that time period, I also said no to other projects and fundraisers that were very worthy causes, but not in that place that I wanted to be with my kids. I'm not coming across as a know-it-all in the report. Yes, I've been called bossy since I'm 3. Thank you. I love that vulnerability and that share. And absolutely, there is a balance there that we can be advisors and we can have the information. By the way, a quick tip on that is just to use a question. So say, hey, in my opinion, this is what I think you should do. What do you think of that? What really resonates for you? What's your experience of that? So we can minimize our know-it-allness by inviting people in for dialogue and for conversation. Alyssa, hi, says being bogged down by brainstorming phase of the possibilities. Yes, and not being able to choose what direction to go. That is such an important one that can really slow us down. And being swayed by other people's theories. Yeah, that is also a great one. We need to be really clear about what it is that brings us this sense of fatigue. So feel free to keep sharing your watch outs in our chat, because that's the fun part for me, is I love seeing the chat. And Carla, fellow perfectionist, thank you. Sometimes hold you back from completing projects. Yes, many of us have that well-intentioned bug. And I know that there's all kinds of speakers that have been here at Lotus Network to talk about perfectionism. And I think the key there is to realize, amongst understanding that we're great at our strengths, it's also realizing it's okay to not be great at everything. It's okay to admit when we're not great at everything. And that we can also say, you know what, that's not my thing. I'm not going to try to be all things to all people. So I gave you homework coming into this, and it seems like many of you did your homework. So thank you. I'm going to give you homework coming out. So the first part is if you didn't do your standout assessment and this was really speaking to you, not too late. Feel free to go ahead, go back to the invitation from today. It was on your confirmation email with the Zoom link. So the link is right in there. Or you can just Google search for standout assessment or standout with the letters TMBC. I'd like you to go back, if you haven't done this yet, mark up your report. Highlight the ones that really fit for you. And even better, what really brings us to life, as I'm seeing some of you in the chat sharing, think of examples where this has shown up for you, because that's what really brings it to life, is those quick anecdotes, those quick examples. So, and of course, do more of the good stuff. Please go ahead and lean into your strengths is definitely a key message we have here today. So we've talked about knowing your strengths, which many of you learned from a standout, and many of you intuitively know as you shared in the chat. We're going to shift to growing your strengths, using your strengths, or this word that I love, which is activating your strengths. So really, we only have so much time in our day, and thinking about how do you spend that time? Are there things you can do more of or less of that are more into your strength zone? And what can you say no to? So many of us have that problem, myself included, the saying no. Maybe that can be the litmus test, part of what you decide you are going to say no to or yes to. Are there ways that you can make an immediate impact using your strengths? Maybe there is some volunteer work that you've been thinking about doing. Maybe there are other projects you've been thinking about taking on. A lot of this too is wrapped up in our legacy. How do we want to be known? Chances are we already are known for the strengths that we do, but can we be even more active for it? And then where are the ones that we can dial back because they're just not serving us like they should? And really, for me, the really fun part in all of this is to spread the word and to make our relationships and our connections more strengths-based. So remember at the start, we had the guy with the, what are these called? I was going to say goggles, microscope, telescope. What are these called? Binoculars. Okay. Words, Vonnie, words. So the guy with the binoculars. So remember that was on the strengths lens. So with that in mind, as we come towards our end today, what are ways that you can connect with people and have more strengths-based conversations? So helping them see themselves through the strengths-based lens, but also engaging them in strengths-based conversations. So we meet people all the time. We say, oh, hi, what do you do for a living? I'm an accountant. Thud, drop. That's the end of that conversation. Now, we have Deb Fine here who can help us with the small talk and getting that accountant to speak up. But one of those other questions that I love is the strengths-based question. What do you love about, and you can fill in the blank, not just what do you do, but what do you love about the work that you do? What do you love about being an empty nester? What do you love about retirement? So engage people in these more interesting questions that can really help them spark up their strengths. We help people problem solve all the time. Simply thinking about the question, what would make it easier to tackle that problem? It might sound obvious, but we don't usually try to think about the way that to make things easier for ourselves. I love the one that is simply, how would my top 2 strengths rules solve this problem? I could be stuck in something and say to myself, okay, Bonnie, how would your connector provider solve this problem? Usually the connector in me realizes, you know what? You know people, you have resources. You don't have to go alone, because I don't always readily ask for help. Even though it is a strength of mine, I don't often lean into it. So just pausing and asking, how would my connector provider solve that role, sometimes helps me cut through a lot of the noise in my head. And the last one that I'll point out is on the bottom, when you're helping either yourself or others make decisions, which option lights you up? We get very analytical. We get bogged down in the pros and cons. Sometimes taking the strengths-based approach, which one lights you up, is really, really powerful. And we spend a lot of our time complaining, venting, complaining. It feels really good. But you know what? I don't know about you. When I've left a dinner party or a get together with friends and we've been doing nothing but complaining, I feel kind of empty when I'm done. So if you can swap out, especially if you have people in your lives who are more of that, for me, the sky is falling down kind of people, engaging them in those strengths-based questions, I think will really uplift the conversation and make you feel better as well. As we move to a close, I wanted to share this quote that I find to be so meaningful, which is that if you think about it, when we focus on our weaknesses, we're thinking about ourselves. I need to do more, be more. Our society is more, 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 not enough. We have a whole self-help industry that convinces us we need to do more and we need to be more. But when we're focusing on our strengths, we're usually shifting our emphasis on how we can bring value to others. And to me, we can always get down on ourselves, but it's bringing value to others that I know is what lights up a lot of you and what brings a lot of you joy in the way you spend your time. So as we move to close, and we're going to do some Q&A, so if you have questions, please feel free to get them going and start thinking about them, and you can start putting them in the chat. And Renee said, love that perspective. Thanks. I felt the same way. So think about ways to apply this in your everyday. So at least once a day, take a pause, use that strengths lens on yourself and others. Get more curious about yourself at any stage in life. As Leslie and Lisa say, it's never too late. It is never too late to get more curious about what energizes you. Tell other people, either share your standout report, talk about your strengths, spread the word. We have been raised to be humble and quiet and to play it small. The more we share with people what we love to do, the more they will tap into us to do more of that stuff. Try to dial back your weaknesses. I'm not saying you can't do them, but can you outsource them? Can you ask somebody to do them? I talk about the 3Ds: dump it, delegate it, do it differently. So are there things that we're just being too much of a perfectionist on and they're draining us and it's not really worth it? However, realize that with our weaknesses, show some grace and some self-compassion. You're human. It's okay. And going back to what we talked about earlier, that idea of authenticity, standing out, being your best, think about ways that you can be your unique self and do less of the fitting in that so many of us have been raised to think about. So really, I can sum up the whole thing in being intentional about applying your strengths, about taking one idea you learned today and putting it into action. So I am going to ask you to share in the chat while we get our Q&A going here. Just think about one thing you learned today that you'll apply. I would love for us to learn from each other. So the more you share your learning, the more we can spread the word and we can learn from each other. So go ahead and share that in the chat. And with that, I'm going to invite Laura up for our Q&A section.
That was so awesome, Bonnie. I know so much to cover in like one little itty bitty hour, but really,
I could
really
have gone
good.
2 hours, and I do sometimes. So thank
I
you for your
know.
patience with my New Yorker speed talk.
I know. I know. Anyway, it's so wonderful. I want to invite before I do have some questions, but I want to invite everyone to pop in if you have a question into the chat so that we can bring that forward and have Bonnie address that. So let me keep my eye in there. There's
Yeah, and I'll just
everyone's popping in their ideas. So one of the things I was thinking about is as you talk about strengths, and of course you get your list, and I think our natural inclination is like we go to the bottom of the list, like, you know, what am I not good at? What am I where are my areas for improvement? What are your thoughts on just investing time in just our strengths, our top, who we are most, or should we also devote some time to strengthening those other parts of us?
I would say strengthen the other parts where we have some energy for doing that. So for me, as a business owner, one thing that is a clear weakness for me is the invoicing, bookkeeping, the money part of running a business. I love doing this work, but I also don't want to entirely do it as volunteer work. So that was something that I had to figure out. And so in my case, I am very fortunate. Some of you know my husband, and that is a strength of his. That is what he does for a living. And so after literally years of the two of us fighting, and he'd be like, why did you put this bookkeeping thing in there? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. He finally said, honey, would you like me to take over your bookkeeping? And I said, yes, please, and thank you. So I mean, I still have to do plenty, but I finally realized that I could outsource what I wasn't as good at because I knew I was never going to get great at it. But then I think about playing pickleball, which I've never been an athlete my entire life, but I started playing a little bit and my kids play and I have friends in the neighborhood that play. I was excited and fired up to learn how to play more pickleball. Now, I play in my neighborhood with people like me who are very chill and very casual and it's social and we might have a beverage in our hand and we play music. I'm not going to play with competitive people. I'm still going to be in my environment, but I felt that sense of energy to get better at it.
I love that. There's a great Peter Drucker expression you may or may not know about, like a leader's job is to align strengths in ways that make weaknesses insignificant or irrelevant. And it's kind of like exactly what you're saying, right? Like find the ways to align strengths so that the weaknesses aren't there. So I love that.
Yeah. And we can also think about ways to see our weaknesses through a strengths lens. So for example, I've worked with people who don't like to do this. They don't like to get up and present to people, but many jobs have an element of presentation skills. Well, I had a client who was actually like me, a connector. And so she realized that she was connecting people to information, connecting people to new insights. She didn't have to be the brilliant one on the stage to have all the answers and be in the spotlight. So when she reframed presentation skills through her connector strength, it was a big aha to take a lot of pressure off of being the perfectionist on the stage. So think about ways that we can do that also. And make it more fun for us because life is too hard. There's a lot of have tos and need tos that just bring us down.
I want to add one quick question. I know we're going to run out of time, but there was a great question in here, is that over time, should we be coming back to reassessing ourselves? Will our strengths shift and change? And what recommendations do you have from Alberta for when it's time to re-examine our strengths?
Yeah, well, chances are this is both good and bad. We take ourselves everywhere we go. So our research shows that most people, when they retest, and I've done this to test it myself, our strengths actually do not change over time. We might use them in different ways, especially in different life phases. If you think about how you maybe used your strengths in parenting and at work and in retirement, but for the most part, we take ourselves everywhere we go. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I wish we could go on. There are millions of questions and the people want to know, but thank you. It was so great, Bonnie. What a gift to have you. Don't forget, everyone, by the end of this week, her presentation will be up on the website for viewing, along with links to her website so you can find her elsewhere. And please check out our social media, Instagram and Facebook pages. The Instagram is lotusnetwork.org, and on Facebook it's at lotusnetwork.org, and Tara is going to put links into the chat for you so you don't have to try to figure that out all on your own. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're so grateful for your participation, and we love having you. So have a wonderful, great rest of your day, and we'll see you hopefully in the next Timely Topics.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have you ever danced so free that you flew, released from all that's stopping you? And have you ever felt like you are one piece of the whole, strong and gentle and beautiful? 'Cause looking into your eyes we know, nestled there right down below, a seed has been planted, and it's singularly yours. It's never too late to tell your story. It's never too late to start a new journey, and life like a lotus that has finally come to bloom. We'll be bursting through the darkness, ready to shine through. Together we've got so much more to give.
Thanks, Jeff.
And it's never too late to live.
Now you